Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of World of Flashpoint, where we will be checking out more Flashpoint tie-ins. This week we're going to be talking about Emperor Aquaman, the World of Flashpoint, which is its own miniseries, and Booster Gold, which, unlike all of the other main series, took place within its main series. It wasn't released as a 3-issue miniseries, it was just 4 regular issues of Booster Gold that tied into Flashpoint. So without faffing around, let's just get straight into the first series today, Emperor Aquaman, written by Tony Bedard with art by Ardian Syaf and Vicente Cifuentes. The story begins 8 months ago in the sunken city of Rome, where Arthur has used the geopulse emitter to destroy Rome, and now he's in Rome, just checking all the bodies of all the people that he's killed, and he slowly starts to feel regret for what he's doing when he looks into the eyes of his victims. He then sees a stained glass window that somehow miraculously survived this event, and when he sees it, he sees a dove in the window, and it reminds him of Mera. He sees her helmet, and she has recently been killed by Diana, so he smashes the window in rage. He doesn't like anybody talking about Mera. He heads back to Volko, and they talk about the geopulse emitter, and Aquaman talks about the way that they acquired it, and that is when we flash back to 11 months ago, when Brion Markov of Markovia, he is the brother of Tara Markov, who is Terra. He is the king now, and he wants to ally himself with the Atlanteans against the Themyscirans, because the Amazons are considered to be the bad guys. The Atlanteans are bad, but not as bad as they are. He kind of attributes it to, Churchill teamed up with Stalin against a greater threat, so he's basically referring to Wonder Woman as Hitler in this timeline. In the present day, Aquaman learns that the reason why the geopulse emitter is not working against the Themyscirans and their new base on New Themyscira is because of Brion's sister, Tara. So they're going to have to kill her if they want to use him to destroy the Amazons. It's at this time that Orm brings up Mera, and he's gonna say her name because he wants Aquaman to avenge her, and Arthur is like, "Don't you dare say her name. I've warned you." We then flash back to 10 months ago, where Brion has arrived in Venice to meet with Arthur, and that is when a couple of Atlanteans try to assassinate him. These are traitors of the Atlanteans. These were not sent by Arthur. And Brion uses his powers against them. He creates like a giant rock hand to grab a couple of them, and he uses his gravity powers to stop another one. And then one of them almost shoots him from behind, but Mera shows up and saves him. And she explains that Arthur sent her to make sure that he was safe, and that Arthur is open to working with Brion against the Amazons. In the present day, Arthur shows no regret over turning Brion into a weapon instead of working with him as an ally, because he's just so bent on getting revenge for Mera. And it's at this point that Orm brings it up again, and this time he says her name, and Aquaman immediately punches him in the face. It's like, "I told you not to say her name." We then flash back to Rome 8 months ago, where Brion has gone missing, and all of his people have arrived to meet with Aquaman, and that is when an earthquake starts, and a massive tidal wave destroys all of Rome, so we are seeing the destruction of Rome as it happened. We then cut to the present, where Aquaman tells Orm to ready the Armada, and that once they have dealt with Tara, Arthur is ready to avenge her. It's like the moment his sister has been dealt with, Brion Markov will once again shake the pillars of the earth. So he's planning on just tearing up Earth with Brion. We now get to learn about Emperor Aquaman's origin story. In Maine, 26 years ago, Thomas Curry, who was the lighthouse keeper, saw a mysterious woman out in the ocean and he saved her life. This woman is Atlanta, who is the daughter of the king of Atlantis, and they fell in love, and she bore a child. But her life eventually caught up with her when the Atlanteans came to take her back, and Thomas tried to fight against them to keep her safe, but he was beaten easily because they're Atlanteans and he's human, they're way stronger than he is. And they grabbed Atlanta and brought her back to the king, and the king was sickened by what she did because it's seen as an atrocity for an Atlantean and human to not only be in a relationship, but to also have a child together. And to make matters worse for Atlanta, she died during birth, and they saw the child as a monstrosity, so they just wanted to let it die. So they put Arthur out on what they call Mercy Reef, so that he would die there, but what they didn't know was that Arthur was a part of the foretold legacy of every now and then an Atlantean is born with the power to control sea life, and they didn't know that Arthur was this generation's version of that. And so some dolphins came and saved him and brought him to land, where Thomas Curry would be able to raise him and keep him safe. And Thomas did exactly that. On Arthur's 13th birthday, it is shown that Arthur is very questionable about his upbringing, and he wants to go back to Atlantis because the fish and the birds have been telling him about it, and that it is his right to be the king of Atlantis. And that is when some Atlanteans break into the lighthouse, and Thomas mistakenly thinks that they're here to kill his son, which is understandable because when they abandoned him, they saw him as a monstrosity and they wanted him to die. But what Thomas doesn't know is that the king of Atlantis recently died, and the vizier of Atlantis believed that the king was mistaken and that they'd made a mistake getting rid of Arthur, and so they've come to retrieve him, not kill him. But Thomas doesn't know that, and he gets killed by the Atlanteans, and they take Arthur back to Atlantis. And because Arthur was taken back to Atlantis so much younger in this timeline than he was in the main timeline, he never learnt the lessons that he needed from his father about humility and kindness, and instead he saw humility as weakness because his father died against the Atlanteans. So that's how he ended up with such a cold heart, and he became Emperor Aquaman. In the present day, Arthur carefully surveys New Themyscira, but unfortunately his ship is seen by the Furies, so they all fly straight towards his ship, and Wonder Woman crashes directly into his ship. She is here to face Arthur in battle. She's like, "You've become quite the monster, Arthur, and to think I almost married you." You know, maybe if they'd have just gone to couple counseling, this war might never have happened, but I guess there isn't such a thing as counseling in Themyscira or in Atlantis. So it turns out Diana isn't here to kill Arthur. She wants to talk to him because she recently found out that her aunt and Arthur's brother are in a relationship, and that they've been pulling strings the entire time, and that they're the reason the war happened. But Arthur doesn't want to listen to her because Diana did kill Mera, which is true, and so he wants to keep her accountable for that and kill her for revenge. 8 months ago, we see Brion, Arthur, and Mera all having dinner together, and Brion is like, "Oh, you two are just too good to me." And he drinks from his wine, and then he passes out, and they're like, "Alright, quickly hooking him up to the machine before he wakes up." And this is where Mera shows her good side, where she's like, "Do we really need to do this, Arthur? Like, I'm really regretting, I'm having second thoughts about this, because, you know, Brianna's really helped us with our entire plan, and just turning him into a weapon just seems like the wrong thing." And Arthur's just like, "Look, I've been betrayed too many times, the whole betrayal with Diana and everything, like, I just don't care anymore. I'd rather not lose all these men sending them into battle. I'd rather use Brion's life to save many others." And where in that calculation do you lose your own soul? Some hard-hitting questions from Mera. That is when Orm approaches Mera, and he says, "Hey, we've seen Diana out with her squad over here somewhere. Maybe if you go out there with your own squad, you'll be able to take her out, and then the war ends. And Mera listens to Orm and heads off to fight Diana, and that is when she gets murdered by Diana. So it is Orm's fault that Mera died. He was the one that sent her out to attack Diana, knowing that Mera wasn't going to come back. In the present, Arthur continues to fight Diana. He thinks his brother is dead, but Diana is like, your brother is not dead. He's working with my aunt. He's like, no, that's not... Think about it. Look back on all that brought us here. Those two have been secret collaborators all along. And she lays out the whole thing for Arthur, saying that they've been working together, that they planned her mother's death and everything. And Arthur gets in contact with Volko, and he's like, do not set off the geopulse emitter yet, alright? Instead, tell the entire fleet to meet me on the surface, and we will fight New Themyscira head-on instead, alright? We'll call my brother. And then he turns to Diana and he's like, well, I'm still gonna fight you, and I'm still gonna try and kill you because you killed Mera. And whichever of us survives our duel can hold those two accountable. Diana gets in contact with her Furies to see if Orm and her aunt are okay right now, and they say that Orm is unconscious, but it turns out he's faking being unconscious. He activates something on his wrist, and all of the Atlantean ships start blowing up, so he's planted bombs on all of them, and Volko is like, I have no choice but to set off the geopulse emitter because, you know, this is our last hurrah against the Themyscirans. Somebody's betrayed us. He sets it off, and Arthur thinks that Diana was responsible for planting bombs on the ships, and the geopulse emitter starts attacking New Themyscira and starts tearing it apart. It didn't have to be like this, Diana. We could have brought a golden age to the world. Now all that's left is to go down together as your kingdom crumbles to the sea. Arthur knocks Diana's helmet off, reminding him of the woman that he fell in love with and what she had done to his wife. The Furies plan on attacking the ship that Diana and Arthur are in, but Diana makes it out to safety, gets on top of one of the invisible planes, and flies off to London in order to fight Orm, I guess, because I think he's in London now. And then Arthur jumps out of the water and he sees an invisible plane, and he attacks it, throws the person out of it, and takes over it, and then flies to London to find Diana and face her in their final battle. And that is where the miniseries ends. Overall, this miniseries was pretty decent. I appreciated seeing the origin story of Arthur Curry, but a lot of this does go over events that we've already seen in previous miniseries. There's quite a bit of content in this that I actually skipped over because it's stuff I've already talked about in previous videos, specifically the one where I covered the Wonder Woman miniseries. And so now we will move on to the next miniseries, World of Flashpoint, written by Rex Ogle with art by Eduardo Francisco and Paulo Sequeira. Alright, the story begins 8 months ago in Paris, where Tracy is with her family. This is Tracy 13 in the main continuity. She was a superhero who worked with the Teen Titans. She even dated Blue Beetle for a while. In this timeline, she's just a normal girl with her family. She does still use magic, but she never became a superhero. And that is when her mom sees something, because apparently she has the ability to see the future or something. And she's like, no, it's too soon. And then she's like telling all her family how much she loves them. And then a massive earthquake starts, and the city of Paris is hit by a tidal wave, killing almost everyone except for Tracy and her father, because Tracy was able to teleport them safely away to a wheat field, and she starts to pass out from her powers, and she sees all of the people dying, and that's also what causes her to pass out as well, because all of the trauma. While her father is begging her to use her powers to go back and save her mother and her brothers, but unfortunately, they died. Tracy mentions how she can see flashes of a timeline that she doesn't know, which is the main continuity. Stuff that she never got to do, because in this timeline, she never got to be a member of the team. She never had love. She never had friends. Instead, all she had was her father, and the death of her mother and her brothers caused a lot of conflict within the relationship, with her father, especially because her father hates magic and he hates her using it. And so, yeah, that started to strain her relationship with him. She now has the number 13 on her forehead, which was apparently caused by the magic. He's like, look at what this magic is doing to you. Like, look at what it did to your face. Tracy finally snaps and starts having a go at her father about everything that's going on within the Flashpoint timeline. And he apparently works for this Hive Council. So that's the Flashpoint version of Hive, who are a evil organization in the main timeline. And then she brings up Mum and is like, if you were so good, like, if you want to save the world, why couldn't you save Mum? Her dad just looks at her, and he doesn't even slam the door, he just leaves, and that's how she knows he's upset. And she's like, I'm so stupid, why did I say that? So she leaves home, she heads to New York City in order to meet with Madame Xanadu, who in this timeline is really old. Normally she would be immortal, but apparently she lost to her sister Morgana, and now her life is coming to an end. And Tracy talks about her father and the situation that she's going through, and Madame Xanadu explains to her that this timeline has always been real bad. Like, the Justice Society tried to come together, but they didn't have a Flash, because in this timeline, Jay Garrick doesn't exist, or at least he didn't exist as the Flash. We'll find out more about that in a later miniseries, but because they didn't have a Flash, they all died. And then, you know, the stuff that happened with Superman, where Metropolis was destroyed by his ship, and Queen Hippolyta was killed as well. So all these bad things have been happening, and Madame Xanadu is like, there's nothing you can do, Tracy. This world sucks. So the most you can do is just spend time with your father and make the best out of that, because it's not going to get any better. And Tracy's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm thinking too much about all this other stuff. I've just got to spend time with my dad and try to make the best of what I have. And so she leaves. Madame Xanadu starts crying blood because her life is coming to an end now. And according to her, everything else could be coming to an end too. Tracy teleports to the meeting room of the Hive Council, where she sees that there is a satellite pointed at Atlantis and Themyscira, and that they plan on destroying both of them. And then the Hive Council enters the room, so she quickly goes invisible, and they are doing a vote on whether or not they should destroy Themyscira and Atlantis. And there are some notable names here from the main continuity. We got Red Star, we've got Ra's al Ghul, who seems to be a lot younger here. Like, I don't know why he's got, like, major baby face going on right now. Kamiyo Hoshi, who is normally Dr. Light. Adeline Kane, the wife of Slade Wilson, Captain Nazi of Germany, and Osiris of Kandak, the brother of Isis, who he believes was killed by the Atlanteans, which we know is not true. She was killed by the Outsider, who was not working with the Atlanteans. I don't know why Osiris believes that she was killed by Atlanteans. Maybe he was tricked, or this is just another example of a continuity issue. Osiris tells Tracy's father to cast his vote, and he says yes. So he goes to set off the satellites. Tracy tries to stop him and tries to convince her father that this is not the way. And her father is like, nope, this is exactly what we're supposed to do. There's no other way. And Tracy is like, Mum would be ashamed of you. And she slaps him across the face. And you're wrong. There is something I can do. And she starts fighting against the Hive Council in order to stop them. Red Star and Osiris try to fight back against her. She uses her magic to turn Osiris back into his kid form. But her father walks up to her with a syringe and knocks her out. I'm sorry, Peanut. It's done. And he presses a button, setting off the satellite weapon. Tracy is unable to change her father's mind, so she's like, if I can't change your mind, I'm gonna have to stop you any way I can. She teleports away to Madame Xanadu so that she can get her help, but Xanadu is dying. She's come to the end of her life. For real this time, she's actually dying. And she says to Tracy that she is connected to the world and that what she needs to do is she needs to go out, see the world, see why it needs to be saved, and use that against her father. So Tracy does exactly that. She travels to Tokyo, Japan, where she comes face to face with this timeline's version of Red Tornado. There's a lot of them in Japan. They're all led by this one who is white and red like the Japanese flag, and all they want to do is protect Japan. And they're like, we're happy to help you. We just want you to wake up our master, Tio Moro. And we see that Tio Moro is dead. He's just a skeleton in a chair. And Tracy's like, we can't really wake him up. Like, I do not understand. I must be finished. Please wake up, Dr. Morrow. I would like to help. I know, but you can't. And then she just teleports away. Like, screw Red Tornado, I guess. He's never gonna find out that his master is dead. Why couldn't she tell him that? I'm sure he knows what the concept of death is, if you explain it to him. She then travels to Brazil, where she comes face to face with an old friend from the main timeline, Natasha Irons, who is the leader of a group who have taken it upon themselves to just go out and kill Nazis and bad guys and stuff. And she doesn't really help Tracy because she believes that killing the Amazons and the Atlanteans is a good thing because, you know, they've destroyed so much of her home. So she's like, yeah, just let them die. And Tracy's like, okay, you didn't really help me at all. So good luck in your war and good luck in mine. And she teleports away. She heads to Africa where she sees the situation there. Gorilla Grodd has taken over Africa and she tries to free all of the human slaves, and one of the gorillas catches her and sends her to execution. But before they shoot and kill her and all the other people, she incinerates all of the gorillas, and then one of them shows up with Beast Boy, who is their slave in this timeline, and he orders Beast Boy to kill her, but instead he turns into a bug, goes into the gorilla's mouth, and bursts out of his head. It's disgusting. Kills this guy, and Tracy's like, hey, thanks for saving me. That was really gross, though. Anyway, you should stay here and help the Africans survive while I leave. And she teleports away. She ends up in Queensland, Australia, where it turns out in this timeline, Guy Gardner opened a Warriors bar in Australia, and he became a Buddhist as well. He never became Green Lantern. He's just a guy who's trying to stay away from all of the terror going on in the world, so he doesn't really help Tracy either. She's just like, alright, I'm done talking to you, I'm gonna leave now because you have no interest in helping me in this fight. She slams a drink and leaves, ending up in Antarctica, where she comes face to face with Cersei. We are jumping around so much. Cersei tried to warn Diana about her aunt, but her aunt kidnapped Cersei and locked her away. And so Tracy frees her, but Cersei has no intent on helping stop the war, because she's like, oh, Diana deserves to die because she didn't listen to me, and I just want all the Amazons to die and the Atlanteans to die now. So, again, this is just somebody else who isn't really helping Tracy at all. But she thanks Tracy for saving her, and then Tracy teleports away to Gotham City, specifically a church, where she comes face to face with Jason Todd. And in this timeline, for some reason, Jason Todd still died and then came back to life. He never became Robin. Instead, he continued as a delinquent, stealing things, tires, money, all that kind of stuff. But he was found by Brother Blood's cult and was forced to become a member of them, which really ruined his life. And then he died, and then he got a second chance at life and was found by the church and became a priest. And Tracy's like, wow, you don't seem that weirded out talking to a witch. She's like, I'm a Gotham City priest. Believe me, I've seen weirder. And her talk with him has really helped her finally gain the courage to face her father again, because Jason sees the best in the world, even though it's really bad. He's like, well, God is with us, and so everything's going to be okay in the end. And so she heads back to the Hive headquarters, where she then gets attacked by her own father, and it turns out that her father is now using dark magic, even though he was against it before. And you shouldn't play with magic. You're just a child. So maybe he was always a dark magician to begin with? Tracy fights against her father and tries to convince him to stop using dark magic because it is burning away at his soul, so if he keeps using it, it's going to kill him. And he says he doesn't care. He's like, I know everything about science, which means I know everything about magic. My soul is a battery, so I may as well use it. And then he is like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Tracy, I'm so sorry. And Tracy goes up to him and hugs him, and he's like, you're such a fool for falling for that, Tracy. And he tries to knock her out with his powers, And then he prepares to use the satellite on Themyscira. And she's like, if you're going to kill 118 million people, fine. Count me as one of them. And she teleports to New Themyscira in order to force her father to kill her. And so obviously he doesn't set off the satellite right away because he doesn't want his daughter to die. So she ends up in Paris and she tries to stop everybody from killing each other, but nobody's listening. So she chains herself to the ground and is like, you're not going to be able to take me away from here, Dad. Like, I'm going to die here if you are insistent on killing everyone. And he starts attacking her with his dark magic. And then Tracy tries to get through to him by convincing him that she did try to save her mother and brother. And that the reason she has scars on her face, the demons scarred her for trying to save somebody that was supposed to die. And this is what finally snaps her father out of it. And he finally comes to his senses. He's like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did all of this. I can't believe I put you through all of this. Like, I'm a monster of what I'm doing. And then, all of a sudden, Tracy gets stabbed by a spear. He's like, no, Dad, don't. And he starts killing everybody in a rage because, you know, his daughter might die, and Tracy falls to the ground, and we get flashes of Madame Xanadu saying that she is one with the world, and that is when plants start growing around her, and the spear disappears, and she's like, wow, I must be immortal or something. And her father is continuing to kill people, and she tries to stop him, and he just sends her flying. She's like, ow, that was not cute. And she flashes back to Madame Xanadu, saying that she must stop her father, see the world, see why it is worth saving, and show your father. And so she uses her abilities to show her father everything that she's seen, what we've seen. You know, Jason Todd as a priest, Natasha Ryans as a leader of a group, Thomas Wayne, Batman, Abensur, all of that shit. And it finally breaks through the dark magic controlling her father. But the satellite is still active and is still going to destroy Themyscira. They need to get rid of it. And Tracy says that her magic might not be strong enough. And her father is like, no, let me do this. Let me do something good for once. So he uses his magic to fly into space. He destroys the satellite with his magic, which almost kills him. He essentially tries to sacrifice himself, give his life for something good. But he is saved by his daughter. She appears in space, she grabs his hand, they teleport back to Earth. Specifically the wheat field that we saw within the first issue. And this teleportation was the last of her magic. Tracy no longer has any magic left. She's like, I can't teleport us back to civilization. We're gonna have to walk back. This world might suck, but it's the world that we have and we gotta make the most of it. So let's just head home and start living life how we should as a family. And her father is like, looks like we have a long way back to civilization. Want a piggyback ride? Kinda, yeah. But I'm not too old. You're never too old. And then we see one of Xanadu's cards, which says the world. The end. Of these miniseries so far, this is definitely the best one. The Emperor Aquaman one was fine, but it was mostly flashbacks and stuff that we'd already seen. This was full of a lot of new stuff. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoyed the relationship between Tracy and her father, how complicated it was, and how they came through for one another. And it was cool seeing, you know, some alternate lives for characters like Guy Gardner and Jason Todd, albeit how small it was, how quick it went by. Honestly, all this book really wants is just, it makes me want to see more of Flashpoint. It makes me wish that we had just a Flashpoint series in general that took place in this timeline, because I do find this world interesting, and I don't think the miniseries were long enough to really give it justice. Like, we got to see sneak peeks of different lives, but it would have been cool if we got a full-on Flashpoint ongoing taking place in this world where we could really dive deep into a lot of these alternate timelines and lives, because I do find it interesting. Because there are characters that we never got to see adapted into the Flashpoint timeline. We never got to see Kyle Rayner or Tim Drake or Stephanie Brown, any of those characters. And now we move on to Booster Gold, written by Dan Jurgens with art by Dan Jurgens, Norm Rapmund, Rick Leonardi, and Ig Guerra. The story begins with a couple of army men seeing something flying over Coast City that they don't recognize. They think that it's an Atlantean, so they immediately start bombarding Coast City with missiles to kill this supposed Atlantean, but it turns out it's actually Booster Gold alongside his friend Skeets, who are currently in Coast City, and they realize that things are not quite the same as they used to be. Coast City is a lot more high-tech than usual, and it also has a higher population than usual because the Coast City from the main timeline was destroyed and then started building up its population again. While it seems that this Coast City may not have been destroyed at all, these generals have no care for Coast City. They're like, we just gotta get rid of this Atlantean as quick as possible, so just blow up that entire city block that this Atlantean is in. So that's exactly what they do. They blow it up. Booster is luckily safe. He did not die from this. He got stuck under some rubble, but he's all good. And as he gets up, he sees a couple of soldiers, and he's like, oh, about time some soldiers got here. But then they start shooting at him because they think he's an Atlantean, and they're like, hey guys, what are you doing? It's me, Booster Gold. Like, I'm a good guy. And Skeets is like, we'd better retreat so we can figure out what's going on. Let's head to Dr. Hunter's Arizona time lab. But as they try to get away, the army activates a satellite laser which hits Booster, and Skeets tries to activate his force field to save him from a nasty fall. And while it does work and Booster doesn't die, he does hit his head pretty damn hard and is knocked out for a moment. And that is when we get a flashback to when Booster Gold, Rip Hunter, and Booster's sister Michelle all arrive at Rip Hunter's lab, and when they get there, there is a blackboard with all sorts of shit written all over it, like Wonder Woman is a warrior princess, Cyborg works for the president. Like, these are all references to Flashpoint. Somebody is trying to warn them about the Flashpoint timeline that's going to happen. But Booster Gold doesn't care. He's like, oh, we'll just figure this out later. Maybe Rani drew this. Rani is a child at this point. She is the adopted daughter of Booster Gold, who he saved from Darkseid. She's a Daxamite. Michael goes over to the fridge to get something to eat, and as he opens it up, a massive flash hits his face. He's like, whoa, the bulbs are going off. And he opens the fridge and there's nothing in there. And he's like, hey, why is the fridge off? Wait a minute, why is this place abandoned? Why is there nobody here? What's going on? It looks like this is 60 years old or something. But the blackboard's still there, and it's still got all the shit written on it. Like, what the hell's going on? Maybe Green Lantern and Superman are being affected by this? Well, Coast City is closer, so let's head there. And that's how we ended up where we are right now, where Booster is in Coast City, and he realizes that he might be in an alternate timeline, which would explain why everything's so different. He sees that Cyborg is working for the president and starts putting two and two together because he's like, oh, Cyborg doesn't only work for the president. And so Skeets is like, if we're in an alternate timeline, then you can use the homing device in your suit to take us back to the regular timeline. And so Booster tries to do that, but it doesn't work. And they soon realize that they're not in an alternate timeline. This is the timeline. And that's when the army sends their ultimate weapon after Booster, and it's something that Michael recognizes. He's fought it before alongside the Justice League, and he was traumatized after that encounter. That's right, it is Doomsday, who in this timeline seems to work for the government and the army. And he's got his original suit on as well, which you don't often see Doomsday wear this post-death of Superman once it got ripped off. And so Booster and Doomsday fight one another, and during the fight, Doomsday talks to Booster, saying that he's gonna take him in, and Booster's like, wait, you can talk? What the hell is going on? And the voice says that it's Nathaniel Adams. So in this timeline, Doomsday is mind-controlled by Nathaniel Adams. While they are fighting, Booster jumps through somebody's window, this woman, and ends up in bed with her and is like, oh, hi, sorry. And then Doomsday comes in and starts punching everything, and so Booster has to keep this woman safe, so he grabs her and they fly off together to escape from Doomsday, while the army continues looking for them. And they go and visit Nathaniel Adams, the army men, just to have a chat with him about Doomsday, and they're like, wow, this Doomsday is great. Like, it's great that I have full control of him. And some of them are like, yeah, but be careful. You never know what could happen. That this beast might still have a conscience. It's always possible that he could take control at some point. Nathaniel's just like, nah. He's literally got the brain of a wooden post in there. There's no problem that's gonna happen. We're gonna be fine. This woman and Booster head to her private cottage where she immediately tries to grab a knife and threatens Booster to give her the phone number for the police so that she can call them. And he's like, you don't need to call the police. I'm very similar to a policeman. I'm a superhero. Like, he's trying to lay it out that he's not a creep who kidnaps women. He's just a superhero who's tried to save her life. And he learns that she is Greek and not American. Because he's like, I'm American like you. And she's like, I'm Greek. And then he learns that her name is Alexandra Giannopoulos. Alexandra reveals to Michael that Batman exists, but that he puts thugs in the hospital, and Booster's like, he sounds a little bit more savage than my Batman. And I was thinking, like, Thomas Wayne Batman, I don't think he puts any thugs in the hospital. Pretty sure he kills all of them. And then something a little bit stupid happens where Michael just kind of puts two and two together immediately. He thinks about the timeline. He's like, I wonder who could have changed the timeline. Oh, it was probably the Reverse Flash. Like, he just immediately thinks of the Reverse Flash. Like, why did he come to that conclusion? Why did he just suddenly have that epiphany where he's like, oh yeah, it was probably Professor Zoom. Out of all the people that could have done this, it was definitely him. Michael then hacks into the US military systems to try and see if there's any chronal anomalies around, and he sees that there was one outside of Gotham City. So if he checks there, he might find the person responsible for changing the timeline. So he's gonna head there, and Alexandra says that she's just gonna stay here and be fine, and that Booster can go off on his own, because he's kind of like, oh, you can come with me if you want, so I can keep you safe. And she's like, nah, I'll be fine. And when he leaves, that's when it's revealed that she actually has superpowers, and that's when she mentions that her father was killed by Emperor Aquaman. So she flies off. Meanwhile, the military are tracking both of them. Booster arrives in Gotham City and finds the chronal energy signature, and that is when Doomsday arrives. He just kicks Booster in the back, and the two of them start trading blows again, and then Alexandra arrives and she sees the plane and is like, that's probably the plane that dropped that Doomsday thing, so I'll attack the plane to try and stop them. She starts shooting energy at it. And then Nathaniel Adam starts losing control of Doomsday. Doomsday rips his costume off, and Booster's like, whoa, what's going on? Oh no, I think they've lost control of him. So yeah, bad situation for Booster, going up against a Doomsday that has full control over himself. Doomsday and Booster stare at one another until Booster initiates the fight by shooting everything he has at Doomsday. However, Doomsday just wanders through the beams like he doesn't give a shit, and he just punches Booster, sending him flying through a nearby house. So Booster grabs a car and chucks it on top of Doomsday. He's like, I gotta give him everything I got. I gotta take this guy down as quick as possible. And Booster looks through the flames. Stupidly, he goes right next to the flames, thinking, oh yeah, maybe Doomsday has been beaten. No. Doomsday just reaches out of the flames, grabs him by the throat, and then roars in his face, and then punches him, sending him flying away, even though he could have, like, ripped his head off or something. I think Doomsday is just playing with his food at this point. Booster flies into a Wayne Casinos sign. Meanwhile, the US's plane is crashing after Alexandra attacked it, so they managed to gain control of it again. And Nathaniel Adams stupidly believes that Doomsday has no mind outside of their control over him. He thinks that as long as they're not in control of him, Doomsday is just going to stand there and do nothing. They don't realize that Doomsday is actually killing people. They think, for some reason, that Booster Gold is the one that is killing people right now. Alexandra meets up with Michael, and Michael's like, wait, what are you doing here? How did you get here so fast? And that's when it's revealed that she has the ability to copy people's abilities when she touches them. Similar to Rogue, except she's not stealing them. And because she touched Booster, she had the ability to fly and shoot beams for a while. She believes Michael comes from another timeline, and she wants to help him and she attacked Doomsday in order to save him, and Booster's like, well, you attacking him freed him of the control, and now he's gonna go on a rampage and kill lots of people. And we see that in action when Doomsday comes across a bus, and the bus is like, whoa, get out of the way! And Doomsday just smashes the bus and rips it apart into pieces, killing everybody on it, and then he heads off to Metropolis because he just has this instinct to go and attack Metropolis, even though Superman doesn't exist at the moment. I think he's still trapped in his prison right now. Booster goes off in search of Doomsday because he's the only person capable of stopping him, and while he's on the way, he has the helmet that Doomsday was wearing, and he gets in contact with the military and is basically like, you should all feel terrible. Doomsday is about to kill millions of people, and it's all on your heads. Booster catches up with Doomsday and slams straight into his back, and then fights Doomsday, shooting beams at him and shit. He tries to catch Doomsday in his force field and keep him trapped inside it, but Doomsday just breaks out of it, and so Booster tries to kick him in the face, and Doomsday just smashes Booster in the face. You know, he's not really doing that bad against Doomsday, but then Alexandra comes in and attacks Doomsday. Doomsday grabs her, and Booster is like, I can't let him kill her, and so he puts the helmet on Doomsday, and Nathaniel Adams is able to regain control of Doomsday, and they're like, alright, let's go send the military to save Booster and Alexandra, and Nathaniel is like, you don't need to do that, because I have control of this monster again, and I'm gonna kill Booster myself. And so we end on this shot with Doomsday holding Booster by the head, ready to kill him. It turns out, instead of killing Booster Gold, Nathaniel Adams kidnapped him and Alexandra and brought them back to the base so that they could get all sorts of information out of Booster. They're going to use Truth Serum against him to learn everything they need to know and turn his brain into mush. And Alexandra tries to convince them that what Booster is saying is real, that this is an alternate timeline, and that he can make everything the way it's supposed to be. But they just won't listen to her, and Nathaniel was like, look, if you're going to try and stop us, then we'll have to torture you or something. And Booster's like, I've got to make sure they don't hurt her. So he shoots at the stuff above, and a couple of lights fall down, and Nathaniel drops the helmet. He's like, ugh, you missed. And then they see in a screen behind him that Superman has escaped from his prison, and Doomsday senses Superman. It's like he can sense him. He knows that Superman is around now, and he starts to break control of the helmet, and they're all like, stand down! Doomsday starts going crazy, starts attacking military men, killing them. He starts attacking Booster as well. Nathaniel gets sent flying. Booster tries to fight back, but he just gets the shit knocked out of him, and Doomsday goes to stab Booster with a massive metal pipe, but Alexandra grabs the helmet, puts it on, takes control of Doomsday. She forces Doomsday to rip his own chest open, and he just rips it open, dies, and, you know, later on we see Doomsday's body in the Project Superman miniseries. And now Booster needs to find Barry Allen, because he sees Barry on a screen and is like, oh, it's Barry Allen. He can probably help me make everything go back to normal, so I need to go find him. And Alexandra is like, are you going to leave me here? And you're just going to reset everything? Undo all of the time that we spent together? And Booster's like, no, I'm going to bring you back with me, because through the time that they've spent, even though it's only a little bit, they seem to have kind of fallen for each other. Keep in mind, this Alexandra character does not return after Flashpoint. She never shows up in the New 52 or anything. The two of them head over to the battlefield where Barry Allen is, and Booster meets with him and is like, hey, Barry, I'm going to need to help you try and fix the timeline. And Barry's like, how are you going to do that? And Booster's like, well, I can use the coronal energy from your Speed Force to enter the time stream, and then I can change time from there. And Alexandra is with Booster as he travels through the time stream using the coronal energy, but as they kiss each other, a military guy shoots with a laser, and she gets in the way of it to save Booster. So she gets hit by it, and unfortunately, Alexandra dies, and Booster falls into the time stream And then he wakes up in the Vanishing Point. He appears there and is like, whoa, where am I? Wait, I'm in the Vanishing Point? Why am I here? There was some kind of war that was going on, and a woman. Like, why can't I remember anything? Where was I? This is so weird. Like, the only thing I know for sure is that I gotta get me a new suit. And then it's revealed who was responsible for all of the writing on the blackboard. It was Alexandra. So when she was hit by that laser, it seems she became one with the time stream. She appeared in the past to write the warning on the blackboard and start this whole thing. So it was her the entire time, which I think is a cool way to have things come full circle. And that is the end of Booster Gold, and that is the end of this week's video. Overall, the 3 series that we covered this week, all really good. I think my favorite one was definitely the Booster Gold one. I think it was a great ending to the Booster Gold series, as well as a good tie-in to the Flashpoint series. Unfortunately, for the next few years after this, Booster Gold would be mishandled pretty badly by DC. He would become pretty much entirely irrelevant during New 52. But at least this series ended well. The World of Flashpoint miniseries was surprisingly decent. I was expecting that one to be the worst of the 3, but I think it ended up being my second favorite. And Emperor Aquaman was alright. It was mostly just building up on things that we already knew about Aquaman, showing his origin story and stuff, so it wasn't anything game-changing. But these 3 miniseries are definitely Flashpoint tie-ins worth reading if you do read Flashpoint and you're interested in reading any of the tie-ins. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video, and I will see you next week for the final group of Flashpoint tie-ins. If you enjoyed this week's video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Have a good one.